Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Shelton.
Here.
Brackman. Here. Peternity.
Here.
Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner.
Present.
Bonfiglio.
Here.
DeVersa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
And President Hughes.
Here, thank you. At this time, we will have opportunity for people to address the council. If you'd like to address city council, please leave your name, give us your name and address, and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Anybody want to speak?
Melissa Peternity, 346 Faulkner Street. I just wanted to, again, give Crystal kudos to coming up and bringing this up again and putting this on the table. The renters thing, I think, is long overdue to make landlords accountable for having their properties and keeping them up and making the neighborhoods better, because with better neighborhoods, we have better places to go. So I thank you. I thank you for always, answering the phone and having the conversation to you and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak?
Doug Champ, 225 Bowen Street. I also believe that the Department of Development has really stepped up to the necessity of looking at our housing in our city. Many things have been long overdue regarding this, and it's difficult at best to understand the dichotomy of what a house is and how it presents itself to the community, not only as a renter occupied, but an owner occupied. And it's a cherished possession that needs all the attention it possibly can. And the enforcement has always been a difficult step in terms of what do we want to enforce, what we can enforce, and where and how we're going to enforce it. So now I think this does what needs to be done. It needs to step it up in the city. I think if you talk to anyone in any neighborhood, they would be concerned about the problem of housing and the investment that people have. They pay their taxes this year, every year, in my case 46 years. Well, all we want is to have a decent place for those who own and those who rent, a place to live. And without enforcement and without these types of actions, failure will occur. Is it going to be perfect? Nothing ever is. But this is a good step in the right direction, and I gave Crystal some ideas to present as augmentations to those local ordinances. And I think it is also going to step up when you get involved with zoning and you get involved with a comprehensive plan. Those integrals are going to exceed what those plans are all about. So we've got to have strong housing commitment. And if you come by and you look at something that's been there for like 10 years with an orange sign on it and you wonder why, well, maybe this will start moving that along. The only thing that I would hope that when you look at the fines, that they don't extend out 5 years. I mean, 5 years is a long time to pay a fine and still have the problem. So that's something that's important to take a look at. And I also think, as I mentioned earlier, neighborhood impact, what the assessment of that's going to be. And I think it's a good stepping stone for the city to put together a model of a neighborhood impact problem, what that might entail. The final thing is this, is that when you look at the future of housing in Jamestown, you're also going to have another issue. That's infill. And infill requires what the house of Jamestown is going to be in the future. Is there going to be one, or are we going to just renew, restore, and rehabilitate? So I'm thinking that the next step after this gets done, that I'd be more than happy to sit down with Crystal and talk about passive housing, what passive housing is, how they can be built on small locations, small sites, in a vertical installation, you know it. So we just have to do it. But thanks for this work, and I hope council does due diligence, but at the same time, this thing doesn't go on some kind of external hiatus for the wrong reasons.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else like to address the council?
I can say one thing. Robert Sisley, 20 Barker Street. I want to thank the housing, the plan that you have. Also, yeah, I'm a landlord more than welcome to inspect my house. I try to keep it up. But it's also a two-way street too, because if you have tenants, I've been very fortunate with my tenants, but there are some landlords that have had tenants that the people destroy it, and it's not, you know, it's past their control of what happens. And that has to be a two-way street also, that they have to protect the homeowners also, because it's not just they're making this money out, you know, hand over fist. They're also got, you know, mortgages and everything else that they're paying. So that's gotta be a two-way street. And that's all I've gotta say, but you guys have been doing great work. Excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council? Okay, we'll move on. We'll start with housing. Billy,
Yeah, just briefly, before you are those three different ordinances that have been proposed by the Department of Development, they've been talked about and gone through various renditions to come forward with these three. Quite a bit of legalese, but the meat of it is fruitful for our city and our housing dilemma. The three that you have before you with the vacant property one seems to be a pretty cut and dry ordinance that we'll look into, hopefully approving by the end of the month. And the other one that's pretty much already been put on pen to paper is the public nuisance one, where the police department's shown great efforts in participating in having one officer that's doing that work as we talk, or as we see. The results are published, I hope, so people know that this this police officer handling these nuisance ordinances and issues has done a fabulous job. This ordinance that's before us will just fine tune some of the rules and regs and fines and timeframes involved in that. The one that's gonna take a little more time is the rental inspection, and it is for inside and out of all these parcels. It's also, in our defense, we're putting the cart before the horse in the sense that we're doing this before the state's mandating it. The state's gonna come down and have us, and hit us hard with having to do this. And I think it's commendable that the council and through the Department of Development that we're putting this out before the state actually tells us how to do it. There's going to be March 18th of full-blown dissertation on the nuances of these three ordinances by Crystal and her staff, and we'll get more information. But in the meantime, we're getting quite a bit of feedback from the public and in her department getting ideas and suggestions. Obviously, timing is something we'd love to get her done right away, but it's, this is, sad to say, could be years to have it all turn to fruit for us. So, Crystal, why don't you add what I might not have covered on that? I know,
You're very thorough.
well, there's a lot to it.
There is.
The point.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is, I know it's a lot of information. Myself, my department, we are very happy. Casey Folk, she really has been the one that has put the most work into these. But we are happy to answer any questions, address any concerns you might have. Please, please, please provide us feedback if you have it. If you hear feedback from your constituents, we want to make sure that we are at a place where we are confident that we can pass this. I would love to be able to have the rental inspection ordinance ready to go for a next month, for an April voting session. I think there are some things that we still have to work through logistically over the next month. You know, it's going to be a big lift for our department to implement. We will have to coordinate with the county. And so there's some things that we still have to work on, but as far as the nuts and bolts go of the ordinance, we really seek that input, now, and, we'll make whatever revisions we need to make so that by, the end of April at the voting session that, we've got something that we can be proud of and we can act on and have another really, I think, important and really powerful tool for us to be able to use to start, addressing some of the more significant issues that we're seeing. So, and I keep forgetting to put this out there, but Russ reminded me earlier, Russ is gonna come along and do a ride along with code enforcement, so that invitation is extended to all council members. If you would like to schedule a ride along with a code enforcement officer, or just come and hang out in DOD for a day or an hour or whatever, our doors are open and we're always, really happy to welcome you in and let you see what we do. That's it.
Thank you. I might add, it's not only residential properties that are being scrutinized, it's also commercial properties, so, thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Moving on to finance, Brent?
Can I just, one quick comment before we move on? Unrelated to what we were just talking about, last year I had spoken about the sale of the Country View Estates with the prior administration. I'd like to resurrect those talks. Maybe myself and the mayor can sit down and start talking
I'd be glad
about
to
what's
talk
going
about
on with those, and I would be more than happy to be involved in that and spearhead the sale of those and maybe work on the language for the sale of those if we could do that. I've had, I think, 3 people reach out to me and that are interested in buying a lot up there and building a house. So let's get it done.
What, are there 11 lots left?
I think there's more.
It's more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know
15, 16
offhand.
maybe.
We do have one that is going to be
There's
coming
one-
before you,
yeah,
for this month to be voted on.
Okay.
They are coming in Wednesday to give us a check
Yeah.
and put their payment down, but, yes, it's very timely discussion because we have internally resurrected that conversation already and have had some conversation with, Corporation Council as well as to, best way to proceed with that. So we will be addressing that, with the Jura Board as well as with council later this month, but
There's
happy to talk about.
There's a city employee, I think he might live outside the city, and he's looking and requested, he's interested in purchasing a lot and building and moving into the city.
I think we've been in communication. Yep.
Yep,
Super.
we didn't forget about it, Jeff.
All right.
We're gonna ask you to vote on it before the end of this month.
Okay, now we'll move on to finance, Brent?
Thank you, Mr. President. Four resolutions. The first one is requesting that Governor Hochul of New York State increase the AIM payment, aid and incentives for municipalities. The funding has been flat for 15 years. We've seen no increase in that, whereas inflation has gone up 45%. They're strapped by the tax cap limit. We are urging Governor Hochul, did not include this in her executive budget, to increase that, as well as the leaders of the Senate and the State Assembly. And that resolution was passed.
Just so everyone knows, this is something that Nikon is also very strongly behind, and there are many, many towns and cities that are signing up on it.
We were discussing too how it was cut back in
But
'09.
'09,
I remember when they cut it, and then they've left it the way it is for the last 15 years. And that kind of started the whole ball rolling about asking for more money from specific
yeah.
budgetary, from when Sam was mayor, and getting the $1 million check every year that we got.
Right.
But it's been flat for 15 years. Hopefully, our state leaders will feed that and make an adjustment, but I won't hold my breath on it, but we'll
We'll try,
We'll try.
certainly.
The next resolution is designating an additional $7,352 in funds to purchase the Lenco Bearcat armored vehicle that we ordered approximately a year and a half ago. It's going to be picked up in 10 days. And that's another resolution coming up for public safety. Originally, it was designated to use American Rescue Plan Act lost revenue funds. However, we are going to be seeing if it is allowable by New York State to use asset forfeiture money. This was discussed in public safety as well. That was passed by our committee. Third resolution is to purchase a new Jacobson HR 700 gang mower to replace the department's 2018 gang mower for a total amount not to exceed $110,484.22. It's a state contract price here, and it's a full expenditure. So, that was approved. Oh, there is a trade-in of $25,000 on the old one. And lastly, we had a resolution to purchase a new John Deere Gator for a total amount not to exceed $20,411.73 for the Parks Department. And this is also a state contract price. That was approved. We did have a report from our comptroller that the Springbok program is going to be going live 3 weeks from today, and they are working on it. There's going to be training for the department heads, and looking forward to that. That was all we had.
Any questions? We discussed where we're gonna park the vehicle's gonna be in your garage because it doesn't fit anywhere else.
The door's not high enough.
You got a place for it?
We did.
How long would it take bets on how long it takes?
Only if I
for
can
first-
drive it
First
in my
person
garage.
hit the garage door? No, I don't.
It's gonna be parked on Second Street.
It's the tight fit.
All right, we'll move on to public safety. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. President. The first resolution we have is that the mayor is authorized to approve and execute a shared service mutual aid agreement between the City of Jamestown, Bus Dyke Fire Department, Incorporated, 886 Mill Road, Jamestown, New York, for the purpose of providing emergency medical and ambulance transportation services subject to the approval of Corporation Council as to form. And I'm going to let Chief Kuhn discuss this briefly because he's so eloquent at it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Council members, thank you for your attention. What this agreement is designed to do is kind of a three-pronged approach. In 2022, Governor Hochul signed legislation that allowed volunteer fire agencies and fire districts and fire companies the ability to bill for EMS transport services. The Firefighters Association of the State of New York, FASNY, lobbied for that for 40 years, and they finally were able to achieve it in 2022. So subsequent to that, any transports that are done by a volunteer agency beyond July of 22, they can certainly bill for those services. As we've discussed in previous years, and especially more in recent months, the demand for EMS services in Jamestown continues to increase, and there are times when it outstrips the availability that either All-Star Ambulance, which we're party to an agreement with, or within the fire department itself, it'll outstrip our resources available to handle those calls. We use our outside agencies, the volunteer agencies that surround the City of Jamestown to come in to help do those transports. This agreement would allow Bus Dyke Fire Department only to recover their costs for providing those services when we do request them to come into the City of Jamestown. The New York State Department of Health requires anyone that's using automatic mutual aid for emergency medical purposes to have a separate signed agreement that outlines the scope of that. Prior to this agreement, we've traditionally relied on the Chautauqua County Mutual Aid Plan, the Fire Mutual Aid Plan, that really does not meet the requirements that the State Department of Health requires of us to have. Nor would that agreement, that mutual aid agreement for fire only, would give Bus Dyke Fire Department permission to bill for the services that it provides. So this agreement does have a revenue share portion of it. If Bus Dyke comes in to the City of Jamestown with a full crew, they would keep all of that transport, and their fees are pretty well in line with where ours are currently at. For some reason, because we do understand that a volunteer agency, the personnel that staff those vehicles, they're donating their time. If they can't bring in a certified emergency medical technician to complete that transport, we will place one of our members on the ambulance to be able to transport in. And then there will be a revenue share portion of that the fire department would recover back from assisting with that transport. If bus day does come in, it's just like the agreement with All-Star, then they keep the full amount. We provide first response only. Any mutual aid department that comes into the city of Jamestown, we always send a piece of equipment to that with 3 personnel in it regardless, as long as we have availability to do so. On the flip side of this, if for some reason Bus Fire Department ever required us to go out to their service territory, we would also retain the right to be able to bill for our transportation services should our ambulance go out. One of the things that's unique in the law, in section 209 of the general municipal law, which is the enabling legislation here, is that you can only bill for transports that are within your own operating territory. So for Bus Fire Department, they have a district out there, that's the only place they can bill, unless they have an agreement such as this. Same for us, our primary response territory is within the borders of the city of Jamestown only. We would not be able to bill for services that we would provide to Bus Fire Department without this agreement in place.
Win-win.
Any question?
It's a win-win.
It really is. There should be no cost to the city for this, and maybe a small revenue stream that'll come in with it. It'd be very difficult to speculate out what that revenue stream could be at this moment in time until we get the process up and going and actually have some data to share.
You said that you hope that this is a blueprint to go further with some of the other volunteer agencies, correct?
It is. Thank you for bringing that up. We have 5 districts that surround the city of Jamestown. We utilize all 5 of them for mutual aid. They each cover a small portion of the city. And we also actually use Lakewood Fire Department if we can't get another agency to assist us in times where we're really, really strapped. Our intent is still to deploy our second ambulance. Hopefully that'll be done before Memorial Day. We expect delivery of that vehicle in April, just as an ancillary thing. But those other agencies, I suspect this legislation will become permanent. It's written into the law now to expire in 2026. It does have a sunset in it. However, I truly don't believe that would be permitted to sunset without a very robust push from FASNY, the Firefighters Association of the State of New York. So it really is a win-win. It'll protect those other agencies that come in to help us, but also that'll help us get those calls answered as they come.
And with the addition of the new ambulance, that's gonna alleviate some of the mutual aid you expect? Or?
That's totally the goal. That's correct. There are times if we get a large incident, like a car accident involving a bus or something where all of our services get overwhelmed, or we get a storm, in those situations, right, there's still a very high probability we'll still use those mutual aid departments, but as a day-to-day operation thing, we're using the volunteers pretty much to the tune of 1 to 2 calls per day. Just last week, we had 3 departments in all at once, including us and All-Star being out on calls in the city. So it's not exactly linear. They don't come in one at a time, as you know. Sometimes it's feast or famine that way. But the whole goal, though, Councilman DeVersa, is to try to cut those numbers down.
Yeah.
So we're relying less on those outside.
If available, if you've got the manpower such as not in an accident or another fire. Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Chief. The second resolution resolved that Chief Timothy Jackson, Deputy Chief Scott Forrester, and Lieutenant Adam McKinley being hereby authorized to travel to the Lenco Armored Vehicles Facility in Pittsfield, Massachusetts from March 13th through March 14th, 2024 to inspect and procure the Bearcat Armored Vehicle with expenses paid by the Jamestown Police Department pursuant to Section 77 Bravo of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York. The chief also stated that Detective Ron Powers will be attending. If we can just add Detective Ron Powers as well, it's not going to affect the cost at all by adding Detective Powers in that. And that passed.
Who gets to drive it home?
I think we're gonna have to break it up.
Still be fighting over that.
Just on that, I just want to make a quick comment that I want to thank the current council members that were here for that vote last year, and the council members are no longer here. I know at times it was contentious with some people about this vehicle. Some people felt that the vehicle was that the police were militarizing themselves with this vehicle. There was one citizen that referred to it as, why did the police need a tank? This is not a tank. This is not, they're not gonna have a 50 caliber mounted at the top, patrolling around in the city. As I stated before, this is more or less an extension of the police officer's body armor. They'll use this vehicle for high-risk raids or barricaded subjects, armed subjects, active shooter situations. This protects the police officers that are using it, and also is an asset to the community. If something horrible happened, officers would be able to move into an area and extract injured citizens, where before, frankly, they'd used an old ambulance before. They had no armor. They had which they joked around and they called it the Jambulance, I think. And then they also used a completely unarmored Chevy van. So
Shred truck.
yes. So this is a win-win for everyone. It's going to protect the officers, and it's going to be an asset to the community. Like I said before, as well. You know, banks use armored vehicles to pick up and drop off money, and you can think of it, this is basically the same thing. So, thank everyone that supported this. I know it's been wanted for a long time, and thank you to Chief Jackson for pushing that and getting this for your men and women to protect them. The next resolution is designating additional $7,352.00 in American Rescue Plan Act lost revenue funds for the purpose of funding the purchase of the Lenco Bearcat armored vehicle. We also amended that resolution requesting that Chief Jackson uses asset forfeiture funds that he has on hand to pay this, rather than having it coming out of more American Rescue Plan Act money. I did have a conversation with Chief after the public safety meeting. He does want to verify through the state that they're very stringent on how he can use those funds, and he just wants to confirm that he's able to use those funds for this purchase. I told him to get back to me, and obviously he'll have that conversation with the mayor as well. So it's still slightly a little bit up in the air, but we did amend that to the asset forfeiture fund, and obviously same thing occurred through finance. The next item,
In the event we can't do that, then we'll go back to.
we'll go back to the original resolution if we can't do that. So, the next were obviously a discussion, which we've had multiple times now, about the local ordinance and laws on housing, and more to come on that. Sounds like a full meeting on that. The next three things were special events. The first one was Turn the River Green, to be held on Saturday, March 16th, 2024, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., including setup and tear down in Brooklyn Square between Main and Harrison. All the paperwork was in order for that. There was a notation from the mayor. On the bottom of that, there's been some issues with parking in the past on that. I talked to the chief, and maybe we can work something out where there's a car down there briefly to make sure there's no issues with parking and clogging things up down there. So that passed. The next special event was Eclipse Watch Party, be held on April 8th from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the Fenton History Center, and we're all hoping for good weather, and it would be bad if it was solid overcast that day, I guess. So, Bill, did you want to make any comments on that?
No, I think the Fenton's looking forward to entertaining.
All right, that resolution passed. The next one was the Gold Star Memorial Park event to be held on Saturday, May 25th, 2024, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. at Jamestown Veterans Park for Memorial Day weekend to honor our fallen, and that passed. And the next event was Roll and Read, to be held on Friday, June 7th, 2024, from 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. throughout downtown, and that passed as well. And the final three were streetlight requests. The first one was on Forest Avenue. That was requested by Councilman Reynolds. That passed. The other one was by Councilman Sheldon, down by the entrance of Roger Torrey Peterson Institute on Curtis. There is a notation on there from VPU engineer Chris Selstrom that he recommend moving the existing light one pole north so as not to incur the cost of another fixture. So that passed, so they'll simply be moving the light to light up the area more. And the third street light request was by Councilman Paterniti on Highland Avenue, and that was approved as well.
Jeff, did you just mention that, were there any updates, Jen, about the number of people at the Fenton?
I hadn't heard.
I just saw on there, did I see
I had,
around 50?
yes, but we'll engage in that conversation.
No, it says estimated crowd size 100.
The concern is that they may only have 100 that enter into there, but people can walk and whatever, and I don't want a public safety mess down there for parking and overcrowded and
Sure.
whatever. We'll reach out to her tomorrow.
Did anyone hear anything about the county buying a lot of glasses for the eclipse?
Yep,
And is that, so it is true?
yes.
Okay,
We will have some here when they come in.
okay. All right, thank you.
That it for safety? That it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I will move on to Public Works, Randy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. We also had talked about the gang mower purchase, and the gator that's gonna be, bought down to Land Pro in the town of Ellicott. Both of those funds would come out of the Parks Capital Fund, and, less trade-in for the gang mower. So, and both of those resolutions were approved by our committee also. We did talk about manholes again. The streets are really in better shape. Yeah, Councilman Bonfiglio mentioned it. The streets are kind of in one of the better shaped years that we've had, and if we can get some of these manholes raised, Mark is gonna work with us, also. There's a few on Second Street from anywhere from 4 Below Business to Foot Avenue, and I think, they would hold a priority along with, several others. But as we discussed before, some of the bigger manholes, the larger ones in diameter, are, other utilities are responsible for those. And we're gonna see if we can reach out to them, because they are doing a little better from what we've heard. And we hope to get some of these manholes raised, because some of them are definitely very bad. Maybe not all of them in the whole city. And it's like a lot of people know, if those manholes, they have to be careful, because if they make them too tight to the surface, they could heave in the wintertime, and our city plows catch for snow removal. So we have to be careful of that, but it is something that we are gonna keep an eye on, and hopefully maybe we can get some movement on that this summer, when the blacktop plant has to actually be open also. So, other than that, I think that was about it for us.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there anything else?
Tony, I've got, Tim Desmond is here, he's not familiar with how kind of things work, but he wanted to talk about some housing things, and I don't know if it's allowable now, or since we've already been through it, or he has to come to the next meeting, but he would like to talk. It's up to you how you decide to do it.
I can give him 5 minutes.
Tim?
Thanks.
Just give your name and address.
Yeah, name and address.
I know you came in a little late.
My name's Tim Desmond, and I own a construction company here in town. And, you know, I'm doing a job currently for the Community Foundation. I'm doing Dave Warren Dodge, I'm up to Hawk Therapy, doing an addition. We're over doing jobs for Schultz. every night when I go to drive home, I say to myself, I wanna go, I live up in Lakewood on Baker Street, way up at the top of the hill. I wanna take the drive home that's the least depressing, okay? So I stay clear of the lower end of Baker Street and all the condemned houses and the garbage that rolls out onto the streets and onto the sidewalks, and nobody's accountable for nothing. Now me, on the other hand, it bothers me because I'm responsible, I'm finable, I'm suable, you know, you know, and if I'm out of hand here, you just tell me to sit down, but hey, I gotta get it off my chest. So I see the condemned houses. They're everywhere. And I drive by and I say to myself, it breaks my heart because I know there's little kids living in there. And the squalor and the pungent smell of the cigarettes and the booze and the animal feces and the garbage, you know. I know I'm probably being a little over the top here, but
No, that's true.
you know, and so, like, I redid the pub years ago downtown and had my backhoe out there and the dumpster and everything, and Jeff Lehman kept coming by and goes, hey, you gotta get your permit, you know, yeah, okay, yeah, I know, I'll get it. And I forget, I get onto something else, we're doing jobs all over the place, Jeff comes by, I'm telling you, you gotta get the permit. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff, I'll send my wife down, I'll get it right away. I forget. Well, I got a $300 fine. Hello. You know, and, but, so, my question is anybody getting issued fines and stuff for just living in absolute squalor? I mean, is there anybody responsible for issuing fines, or do they get to the fine and I mean, somebody owns the house, it's not, somebody owns it. Or do they just go, it's a notice to appear, I don't care. I mean, I don't know. You tell me, I don't.
Are you talking about the fines outside the residence or inside the residence, the conditions, or both?
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
Crystal
you know.
can address that.
I mean,
So, would you like some response?
yes.
So hi, I'm Crystal.
Hi,
I'm the Director of Development, and I know your name very well. I know that a lot of folks in my department speak very highly of you. I don't think that you and I have ever met in person, but I know that we've called you an awful lot of times. So the answer to that question is there are some fines that are issued, but those fines have to be issued by the court. So there's a legal process, and I would love to invite you to, come to the next housing committee meeting where we can have a little bit more dialogue, or come in and sit down with me, and we can talk in more detail. But there is a lengthy process for code enforcement. So yes, if they get an appearance ticket, they're brought into court, and then it's really up to the judge to determine how much time are they gonna be given to comply, how much, if anything, is he going to be willing to fine the occupants or the property owner, whoever he deems to be responsible for the violations. So yes, and you actually missed the early part of this meeting, which we have 3 ordinances on the table to help us as a city have more enforcement capability than what we currently have.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I was a little bit late.
No, not at all.
Sorry, my life,
Get your permits.
Jim, for your knowledge, what is it, 400, so how many questionable homes are there?
Condemnations, and I just wanna make sure that I clarify. If you see somebody that is occupying a condemned property, they should not be in there.
Right.
There's
So,
hundreds.
yes,
I
but
mean,
there are several hundred, anywhere between 200 to 400 at any given time. We try to, the best that we can, right? We don't want them to stay condemned. The goal is to get them
Right.
to be, to be able to remove those signs, but,
It
we've
bothers
seen
me.
a lot more in the last couple of years.
I own 15 rental properties or whatever, or rentals, anyway, and some are in West Ellicott, some are here, but I try to keep everything up on the high end, so if I need a tenant, I can call Turner Realty,
Sure.
but the condemned houses, I go 6 miles right down across the border into Pennsylvania, and it costs $7,000 to tear a house down that should have been tore down, 9 years ago. Here, they're everywhere, but it costs, because it's New York State,
Yep.
it's 3 times that amount of money. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're correct.
No, you're correct.
On average, $33,000.
And it's, because of, somebody's getting fat in Albany over the asbestos.
Yeah.
How does this stop? Because it's so ridiculous. There's so many homes here that are just totally way beyond their useful life, but
It's frustrating.
yeah. Thanks for your
We
time.
do have roughly $1 million allocated currently to tear houses down. So that's starting to take place. But what we've run into is there's not a lot of companies doing it. One or
I've got
two.
excavators.
But it goes back to the asbestos.
Are you certified though for the abatement?
The
Because that's,
asbestos.
are you, yeah, so that's one of the stumbling
that's the
blocks that
thing,
we
you know,
hit,
but-
is most of them require that abatement.
You go down into Pennsylvania, and if it's a, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's a 4-unit or less, it's just have one guy out there with a hose keeping the dust down. Doesn't matter, no asbestos. Well, why would it be so different for New York State? Somebody's getting.
Answered your own question, it's New York State.
It's a question on our paper.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you all.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
There is money allocated currently to tear houses down, and it's starting.
We share your frustration. It's one battle at a time. Do you have anything for us?
So I do, I actually have 4 things, all just informational and all things I think most of you are very well aware of. So the first thing that we have coming up at the end of the month, March 23rd, you all received the press release we sent out, but really this project for Sound the Alarm from the Red Cross is really driven out of Buffalo. So on March 23rd, beginning at 8:30 at Fletcher School, you'll see another press release from the Red Cross this week. There will be close to 100 volunteers installing over 350 smoke detectors in homes, roughly 90 homes, give or take. They can call the Red Cross or visit soundthealarm.org/Western New York to sign up. A, we're still looking for volunteers, or B, if you are looking for smoke detectors to be installed. This is a win-win for the city, as Chief Kuhn and I have talked many times, but the reason they're coming here is because we have a high amount of fires. So we're very much on the radar for the Red Cross, which is why it's here. Nope, free. Free. So that's the first thing. Again, there's information on the website. There was a press release that went out last week. There'll be press releases. There's information on our social media. There's plenty of places, but if someone is stuck, they can always call the mayor's office. Second thing, proud to say that Crystal, Mark, Erica, myself all met with Senator Gillibrand's office, and we've also met with Senator Schumer's office. It's a very critical time, very pressing, small, minuscule time for us to get together to get some congressionally directed spending. So in other words, some specific grants. So we'll be working hard in the next week and a half to put together a plan that we have to have in by the 13th, which is really kind of scary with all the big things we have out there, but we will keep you updated on what comes out of the next meeting and what we decide to put forward. The other thing I'm excited to do in April is I will be touring, although it wasn't George Borello's 100 Businesses in 100 Days, I am going to start going out to some businesses, especially those who did receive some ARPA funding, for some tours and some updates of some things going on in the city. So thank you to Crystal and her department for scheduling that for me. And then finally, we kindly talked briefly about the solar eclipse and the event at the city, or event at the Fenton. I want to make it very clear that there are no city-sponsored events anywhere. It is totally on your own, whatever you decide to do. We will be getting glasses from the county when they come in, and as soon as we get them, I will reach out and also figure out how to get them out to the general public here. If council members want to take some in their neighborhood, we'll figure that out once we get them. But like I said, no city-sponsored events. We will have extra enforcement out for all the things that are concerning to us, you know, things such as power going down, communication being lost for first responders, all those things that you guys haven't heard, but we've been working on behind the scenes to make sure things run as smooth as possible. But if anybody has any specific questions or anything, shoot them out at me. And then I just have 2 other items for executive session. One under personnel, one under litigation, with no action to be taken. And they are quick updates.
Very good. Do I have a motion to